Welcome to Adventures in Life. I'm Earl Beecher, your host. We have two special gentlemen as our guests today. One of them is Colonel George Demas, who's been a friend of mine for 30 years, George, at least, over at California State University in Long Beach, where I first met him back in 1961, so it's at least 30.
More.
And more than that. And George has introduced me to another gentleman that I'm very impressed and pleased to have here. This is Chaplain Joseph Howe. He's a Major General, and he flew all the way from Chicago just to do the show. Thank you. I appreciate it. I want to start off, you are the Chief of Chaplains with the United States Service Command.
That's correct.
I want you to tell the viewers, please, what Chief of Chaplains means. I think most of them know what a chaplain is. I was a chaplain in the Army in active duty during the Korean War, and so I understand a lot of the jargon, but we'll still keep things where everybody understands what we're doing.
Sure.
And what is the U.S. Service Command? So you've got two questions to address, and George, chime in anytime.
Yes. The United States Service Command is an organization for disaster relief. It's patterned after the Army, but it's not part of DOD. It's not part of the Department of Defense. And so it's a private...
So it's not a real military unit.
It's more but it functions
it's not part of the Army.
No.
Okay.
But it functions like one, and it's parallel to it. So, and the reason for that is because in emergency services, response operations in which we are getting involved in, that's what we do. The line organization functions best in emergencies, so it works very well. So you know who you're reporting to right up the scale and who's got decision power. And you have
what mess we take care of first when there's a general emergency.
Right, and in leadership is instilled all the way down to the lowest level,
just
so
like
people take responsibility. Yeah.
Now, are you connected with the military at all?
No. But we cooperate with them in operations where the Guard or one of the other services might be involved in a disaster. We'd be working alongside, but not part of.
Now, most of the officers or most of the leaders in the group have been former military, Air Force, or Army, or any branch of the service. Many were in the Air Force or civilian air patrol and so forth. So it does have a military basis, but we're not recruiting strictly military, ex-military personnel.
In other words, anybody who wants to serve and is willing to learn the routine.
Yes.
Is there an age limit?
No age limit.
There is.
That's old enough to get in.
There is a beginning.
All right, let's get this straight. All right.
There is an age limit. There is. You have to be 18.
Well, I'm not 18.
Well, you probably wouldn't qualify.
That's the minimum age. The maximum
age is 80, but
is 80.
You can stay in over 80 if you have a waiver.
Close.
But you'd have to be in pretty good health.
Pretty good health.
Who do I have to get the waiver from?
Your national board.
And where's this national board located?
National board is located. The members are all over the country, but headquarters is in North Chicago, Illinois, right now.
And you're from Chicago.
Yeah, North Chicago.
So if somebody is interested in this and they give me a phone call, because my number will appear at the end, then I call you and we can say, this is how you go about it.
That's correct. We can give them
so I can refer people.
Yes.
Okay, now what are you doing in Chicago? I know you've got some pretty good plans for things.
Well, I have a pastorate there. And North Shore Baptist Church in North Chicago, Illinois. I've been pastor there for 31 years. And I also am director of World Ministries to the Armed Forces, which operates out of that same facility.
Now, you're connected with the armed forces then, in this
that's
regard?
Not part of. It's a ministry to the military that's outside and supported by churches and individuals around the country.
All faiths?
Yeah, yeah. But we're basically, I'm basically Baptist.
Yeah,
but we
got
work
that.
with people of all denominations.
But see, in the chaplain's corps in the Army, every faith is covered.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so this is the same thing.
Yeah.
Although you're the chief, I know that the chief was Baptist, or he could be any church. It didn't matter for the military. You know.
See, in World Ministries to the Armed Forces, I'm director, and that's a ministry to the military that provides materials and teaching and preaching and follow-up ministry and tracking and assisting people around the world. Of our military and other militaries of the world too. I work with the Koreans and have worked with the Russians and the Romanians and Liberia and Africa.
In fact, you've traveled extensively. before the show, you were mentioning some of the places you personally have been.
Yeah, well, I've worked in with the militaries in Romania and Russia, Liberia, Philippines, Korea, and the United States. In the United States first.
Now, that's impressive, but say we have a pastor of a local church here who needs to get some information, and I refer him to you. Do you work with civilian pastors at all? How do you work with them? What's the arrangement?
Well, first of all, we have churches and groups that support us. And we are interfaced with pastors who have members in the service, in the military, that send us names.
Yes.
That's under WMAF, World Ministries to the Armed Forces, WMAF.
Okay.
So WMAF handles that. That's not part of the United States Service Command.
No.
United States Service Command is a chaplaincy for disaster relief, and that's different.
Disaster relief. We're going to come back to that.
Yeah. So I'm talking about World Ministries to the Armed Forces.
Yes.
And so then we interface with parents, with pastors, with people who have relatives that are in the military, send us the name of their son or their daughter. It's in there. We track them and help them, give them materials, and refer them to churches or chaplains or individuals of their faith that are close by that they can interface, that they can get some support.
Now,
and spiritual help.
these are the young people who are on actual military
Militaries.
duty.
Yes,
at
they're
the
in the
time.
military of all of our branches of service.
I see. George, I see you've got the medical emblem on here.
Yes, the caduceus.
And this ties in with the disaster relief, does
Yes. I happen to be commander of a medical unit in California, and that's one of 4 units that the U.S. Service Command has within it. And it has the Air Corps, in which pilots and others who can transport men, women, and equipment to disaster areas. The Medical Corps
Now, are these disaster areas restricted to the United States, or are you talking about worldwide?
could be worldwide, isn't that correct? Could be
The
anywhere.
United States Service Command can work outside the United States.
Okay.
Yes, we have a charter to do so. But we have all kinds of medical personnel who are interested, who might be interested in serving, either in, if there's an Oklahoma City or a disaster in California, an earthquake or so on, we would be available to help other sources. We would be called and notified of a need, and the medical personnel could be there. And we hope that on a volunteer basis with no pay, just strictly voluntary, and they would volunteer their services to help humanity. And it's a humanitarian effort.
Now, these people, they can be doctors,
Yes,
nurses, former corpsmen?
Yes, corpsmen.
EMTs.
EMTs,
Anybody who's had medical
yes,
training of some sort.
emergency medical technicians. And we would do a lot of the training, and we would have other places where they could get additional training.
So you are doing training now?
Well,
with
we
people?
don't.
Yes.
We take people that are state certified. So we don't do specifically
No.
a lot of the training.
You meant
getting
us
up to
rank
speed.
amateurs don't quite fit the mold.
No, not in the Corps, but if they're training, they can come into the Corps and then they can work to a full level, you know, so they can be in training and come into the
Yes.
Special Corps. We really have 5
How's
Special
all
Corps.
this funded? Do these people, it's entirely voluntary?
Right.
Yes,
Entirely voluntary?
entirely.
Okay, so there's...
It's funded essentially by grants and by donations and volunteer efforts, again, of people who could help. And we're attempting to get grants from foundations and the government, in fact, possibly. We have some grant proposals right now in an attempt to get some extra funding for our needs, in case not for salaries as much as for equipment and supplies and
I think
transportation.
the medical
and so on.
medicines and supplies and
Yes.
sanitary things, all that are... They tell me it's time to pause for a public service announcement, so stay with us. We'll be back with Chaplain Howe and Colonel Demas. Our guests are Chaplain Joseph Howe, Major General in the United States Service Command, and from Chicago,
Yes.
and Colonel George Demas, who is from Huntington Beach, California. So I really feel honored to have you two here today.
Thank you.
Now, we've been explaining what the command is, And you're doing some additions at the Chicago headquarters.
Well, let me go back, and one of the things we want to pick up on is how the Service Command gets their missions.
All right.
And,
who declares what's a disaster?
Right.
Can I call you up and say I'm having a disaster?
Well, you're on your own.
Not really.
Okay.
No, United States Service Command is a national member of the National Organizations Active in Disaster, which is called NVOAD, N-V-O-A-D.
N-V-O-A-D.
National Volunteer Organizations Active in Disaster. And that includes the Red Cross, Salvation Army, many of the other, all these other volunteer organizations.
All these beneficial type organizations working together with you.
The United States Service Command is a nonprofit 501c3 disaster relief organization, just like those organizations, and is part of that
Did I pick up a 501c3 in there?
Yes.
Yes.
That means that it's nonprofit.
That's right.
Yes.
Nonprofit, tax
volunteer.
exempt for donations and so on.
Okay.
And so our local units get tied in with local government and emergency government. And so when a disaster is declared at the local level, they're involved.
Does it have to be, for example, Her Honor, the mayor of El Monte can call you, or the city manager, or someone in authority?
Yeah, it would be the emergency management people that have the responsibility for the mayor, for the county, or the Commonwealth, however it is in any particular state.
If it's a state disaster, it'd probably
The
be
state disaster, the governor does it, and the national disaster, the president declares it, and then we work through with organizations as we are needed and called up as we're needed, our expertise and whatever we have to offer at the time.
I see.
Like the other organizations
Most
do.
of your people are medical, aren't they?
No, we have 5 major corps, but we also have a regular line group of individuals for manpower as well. So we have technical people that run computers and all type of things. We're recruiting. And we have 5 corps. We have Chaplain's Corps, of which I'm the chief. We have a Medical Corps. We have a Science and Engineering Corps for scientists and engineering people. And we have a corps for a legal corps. And then we have an Aviation Corps that handles pilots and airplanes and aircraft and that type of thing. And then really we have another one, which is a Transportation Corps that handles ground transportation and trucks and
To deliver personnel and supplies
and to manage trucks, get them missions to get truckloads of equipment and supplies.
Do you have your own trucks, or do you work primarily with the Red Cross or something like that?
We're kind of in that area right now. It's under development. So, but the idea right now is to get the mission connected up with the truck. We got people that have needs, and we got trucks over here that are empty, and organizations that need to get connected, and Service Command is one connects a mission at this point in time. So it's not set up yet.
I might point out that there were 2 instances this past year where we were notified to be on call. One had to do with the Los Alamos fire, and we were saying they contacted us that we might to be on call and we might be called upon to help with the fire people, the problems they were having in Los Alamos, New Mexico. We weren't called, but we were on
You were alerted.
call. We were alerted.
Yes.
We also were alerted last winter because of the large number of individuals in California, Southern California, who had the flu. And they couldn't the hospitals couldn't handle them, and they wondered if our medical group could.
For immunization?
No, for just dealing with the problems of the flu. And our medical battalion could come and aid the hospitals. In this case, it was USC, LA County Medical Center, where they particularly needed help. They were just lined up out on the street, and we would go in and help.
And they just didn't have enough doctors to get to everybody.
Medical personnel to get to everybody. But we weren't called up again. We were alerted but not called up.
Yes.
But those are the kinds of things we could be called up upon.
But it's nice to know you're there.
Yes.
If you're needed.
If we're
What
needed.
kind of disasters? These weren't the kind of thing I was thinking. I was thinking of earthquake,
Yes.
flood.
It could be any of that. It could be tornadoes, earthquakes. It could be natural disasters, man-made disasters. It can be a lot of different air crashes. It depends on where we're needed and what particular needs
Yes.
the service command could provide at that particular moment in that particular disaster. So that may change.
And being a military format, you move faster than most
Yeah,
other
we can
people
move very
can.
Yes,
quickly.
very quickly. And I might add also that, as you asked earlier about whether or not we were strictly within the United States or not, I have brought to the board of directors of the U.S. Service Command a project in Africa in which we are working an attempt to prevent the AIDS virus from spreading throughout Africa.
Oh, you mentioned AIDS in Africa. You're
And,
talking major disaster.
Absolutely. And we are working at the present time with Dr. Jerry Nielsen, who is a noted surgeon in Southern California, who has come up with a plan to prevent AIDS.
To prevent the spread of it.
The spread of AIDS, starting with one country where we have some ties through the Chaplain, Howe, and others, to the government in Liberia. And
Okay.
our plans are to launch this AIDS prevention project in Liberia. And we've asked the U.S. Service Command to join us in that effort. And we are negotiating right now in an attempt to see if they will do so.
Oh, do it fast.
We have to.
There's so many people dying over there.
The service command right now, of which I'm a board member.
And you've been to Liberia, so you know.
Yes, I have.
Tell us about
worked
it.
there about 6 years, and in and out, and trained all their chaplains for the former regime.
Yes.
So I'm pretty familiar with them. And I know the chaplain general over there right now is a very close friend of mine.
Honestly, what can be done to help those people over there? There were television specials on. I've seen several.
Last night I saw one again.
Just unbelievable.
Earl, you're an educator, and you know the importance of education.
Yes.
And the role that you yourself will play in our project as president of our university that will educate the public, all aspects of the public in Liberia and other countries, to how to prevent AIDS. And one particular method that we have developed is a vaginal suppository for the women to use before any intercourse, any contact, sexual contact, which will kill the AIDS virus, the HIV virus. And if we can educate women to do this, we can prevent the spread of AIDS throughout that particular village, community, town, country.
Yes, I have heard very disturbing things. One thing, the men won't cooperate.
They won't use the condoms, and they won't
Right.
take the precautions necessary.
And so you have to work with
We are working with the women.
And the other thing I've heard is that there's some superstition that if an infected person has intercourse
Yes,
with a virgin, it will cure him.
Yes.
It just is spreading it to the children, because
This is where we
one of the
have
TV
to-
specials I saw, they were talking about a 9-year-old
Yes.
girl.
Yes, exactly.
We've got to do something.
This is part of our job, to educate the people in those countries, and we're using the latest technology, the techniques, and communicating with them, with the chaplains, with their religious leaders, with their political leaders, and so on, to educate them on how to stop this terrible, dreaded disease from spreading and destroying their country.
George, it's not only happening in Africa. Where is
Yes.
it happening elsewhere around the world?
It's happening all over. In Russia and Southeast Asia, it's rampant, and virtually every country in the world has this plague, and that's what it is, a plague.
Yes.
It's pandemic.
Pandemic.
I don't know what that word means. I've heard Jerry Nelson
He
use
uses it a lot.
Yes.
Well, it's not an epidemic in a sense, but it's virtually
Beyond
that.
It's beyond
It's
epidemic.
beyond
It's
epidemic.
a disaster.
It's a
In some, throughout Africa, the AIDS pandemic, if you will, is up to 80%. A friend of mine
worse
is
than an epidemic.
a missionary in Austria, and he was just in my home this past Sunday.
Yes.
He has a very good friend of his that's a missionary doctor in Zimbabwe, which is one of the worst
Zimbabwe, I
stricken countries, and it gets a lot of publicity.
Yes.
But he has a medical hospital there, and he said 90% of his patients are AIDS infected.
Well,
Which means in 2 to 3 years they're going to die.
I was watching a TV, and they showed them burying people, and 500 to 1,000 a day.
In some cases, the burial in a given village or city is exceeding the burial potential of that city. So they do not have enough
Cemeteries.
Yeah, cemeteries, people, to handle the 500 to 1,000 a day that are being buried in some of these cities.
Gentlemen, they tell me it's time for another public service announcement, so stay with us. We'll be right back with Chaplain Howe and Colonel Demos. Our guests are Chaplain Joseph Howe and Colonel George Demas of the United States Service Command. Chaplain Howe, how do you attack to start to deal with a disaster of the magnitude of what we've been talking about, AIDS in Africa?
Of course, the Service Command in and of itself couldn't do it by itself, and no one organization can. So the Africa Project is a coordination of a lot of resources to attack this at a very large scale. And I have a dual role. I am a chaplain of the United States Service Command, but I'm also in the diplomatic team that's going in to set up and get the religious leaders together to get the people to come get the treatment. See, that's part of the problem. They're very private about their sexual lives in Africa, and it's a shame to be associated with AIDS. And so now we can...
They don't want to reveal they have the disease until they're so sick.
And then they're ostracized if they find it, by their family and everything. It's a real shame, and and that adds to the problem.
Comparable to what's been going on in this country too.
Exactly, but it's really a problem in trying to get the people there. So we need the religious leaders to get the confidence of the people to come in and get some treatment to keep from the spread of AIDS.
And George, you've got a pamphlet in your hand.
I have a 4-page pamphlet which can be sent to anyone who is interested in joining the U.S. Service Command and helping us with this deadly pandemic problem of AIDS in Africa and throughout the world.
Well, any disaster.
Any disaster. And I'd be happy to mail this to you, and if you're interested, contact Earl Beecher at the number posted.
My telephone number is given at the end of each show. It's an 800 number, so people can call me, and then I will refer to you. I want to thank you both for being our guests on Adventures in Life. It's an honor to have you here. And I want to thank our viewing audience for joining us also. And please join us soon again for more Adventures in Life. And boy, it is a big adventure when you tackle the stuff you guys are doing.